Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back here at Mom's Basement. We will talk a little bit about my impressions, so basically the beta review, what has to change in my opinion. We will talk about 10 topics today, the 10 topics that will make or break the first Descendant in my opinion. We will talk about the graphics, we will talk about the story, we will talk about the Descendants, we will talk about gameplay, loot, runes, matchmaking, intercept missions, how you unlock chars, and the monetization. If any one of you has questions, please let me know and I will try to answer them. Let's start with the graphics. You can see some gameplay here where the graphics actually look nice. At least I think so. I don't know what the chat thinks. It looks pretty nice. And the thing is, we talked about it during the first stream that like the prologue looked really awesome. And then the graphic was getting worse and worse, and the connection was also getting worse during the whole stream. The issue is, and we have to talk about it because it is different for Nvidia and AMD. And let me show you because I'm prepared. This one is Nvidia, okay? Nvidia graphics. Don't talk about the face because that's always blurry. Don't talk about his face. But see, it's pretty dark. You have a lot of contrast. You have the little shiny thing here and the light for global illumination. This is Nvidia. I am playing on an AMD rig. Now the next screen is AMD. So this is AMD. You see, it's much more, it's washed out, blue grayish. There's like no lighting going on there, so like that's a whole global illumination fuck up. That was Nvidia, so that's just much clearer. It seems to be a bug with the drivers. Okay, we have another Nvidia screenshot here. It's pretty dark, okay, it's pretty dark, but it looks pretty atmospheric in my opinion. Like those little stone things here and the light, that looks pretty atmospheric with the darkness, with the dark stuff and the little LEDs. And now we look at AMD again. That's like basically like PlayStation 4, right? PlayStation 3, PlayStation Portable. I don't know. So that's definitely a bug. Point number one, the graphics. I hope that will be fixed until release, and I think it will, because that's kind of a driver issue. It might also be an Unreal 5 issue. My opinion on the graphics, because regarding the prologue, it can look absolutely beautiful and awesome. That looked absolutely stunning. In the darkness with the fire and stuff, awesome. It also can look like shit. Okay, when you have the AMD issue, then it looks like shit. Sorry, that's what it is, and it is something that has to be fixed for the final release. That was point number one, the graphics. Point number two, the first Descendants story. I make that quick. Yes, there is a story. It just gives you the reason why you do what you do in game. The story isn't as far as I saw it. It's really not that like super new stuff or super crazy. For now, I mean, you have the bad guy, and then you have the bad guys from the void that are even better than the bad guy, and you kill the bad guys, and in between you kill the even worse bad guys from the void. So that's basically the story, okay? That's that point number two, the story. It's just a backstory to like justify what you do. For that game, I also don't care that much about it, okay? Point number three, the Descendants. Let's have a look at all the Descendants we know about so far. We will go over them pretty quickly. So we have different Descendants. So that's point number one. You can't make your own character. You come with those predefined Descendants. So we got Ajax. He's like the Titan Void Warlock mix. Then we have Lepic, a classic shooter guy, I would say, with grenades and stuff. Then we have Visa with the cold stuff. Bunny, which is more focused on abilities. Then we have an ultimate version of Lepic. I don't know if we will have ultimate versions for everyone. I'm not sure about that. Then we have Jaber, who's all about towers. What you can see here is all the Descendants we know so far. The last one is Blair, some kind of a fire guy. So I guess we're done with the Descendants. So my opinion about the Descendants. So you can't make your own char, which is kind of a letdown for me because I try to like identify with my character to have it more immersive. Let me give you an example. One of the horrible things that actually happen with when you have stuff like fixed characters with name and background story, and then you go to the social hub and there are like 10 Lepixes or Ajaxes standing around. That's basically where my immersion is kind of broken. Warframe does it a little bit different with the Warframe, so it's clear basically different guys can wear that. That makes a bit more sense for me. I would say the idea to have fixed characters with backstory is to give them more depth, okay? But for the beta, at least, they feel all pretty generic and there is no depth. So you could have just made a character creator and pick your abilities. That would have made much more sense for me and would be much more pleasant for me. And as I said, if you see 10 of your own character in the social hub, it's kind of like the immersion is broken. I don't know what you guys think, but for me, that's kind of it's a pain point. It's a weakness. So that's my opinion on the Descendants. Let's talk a little bit about the gameplay, abilities and gunplay. Let's start with that. So if you compare it to Destiny 2, to Outriders and to Anthem, I didn't play Anthem, but let's say if we talk about that, the abilities feel much weaker than compared to Destiny. So you don't have that power feeling coming from the abilities. I don't have a problem with it. They feel more like Division abilities. Some people actually prefer that because they say that makes like gunplay more important again. That's a fair point. I think that's just personal preference if we look at the balance between gunplay and abilities. So the abilities just feel more like a support. They aren't like that critical like they are in Anthem, or like that powerful like in Destiny. So that's that about the gameplay. If we talk a little bit about the gameplay loop, in the beginning the missions are pretty fun, but it's just they repeat themselves pretty fast. That's also a good example. So I'm running around with the freezing stuff, and now I want to use my blizzard to freeze something. And as you see, it's like, I don't know, it's like there's also no indicator where I aim it. My crosshair is on him. Why is the blizzard going somewhere else? There's some mechanics I don't like. I just say that right away. For most of the engagements, you have to look for stuff like that later, like that line, okay? So that's connecting from an enemy to me, who basically blocks my abilities. The same can happen that it goes to enemies and then they get healed by him, or maybe they are even damage resistant. Stuff like that, or an overshield. So you have to look for that stuff. And there are even worse things like this, okay? Like this one. I just explained it with that picture. Okay, you have those guys, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, I will explain it now, and I want you to hear your opinion about it. Usually you just see the name or just see the enemy. You don't have that information, okay? Before you start shooting. Now imagine you have a few of them and you shoot them. The moment you shoot them, this line of text is what you see. HP increased, faster speed, cursed, demonic orb. The last thing is important, orb, because that means when you shoot him at your position, an orb will spawn. That can be poison damage, can be electric damage. Poison damage is definitely worse because it might one-shot you, or it will dot you and you will die afterwards. You don't see that. You just fire like in the bunch, or you use a skill or whatever, and that shit will spawn. And the problem is you never know before, and that's what I don't like as a mechanic. You can destroy them. That was another example. I actually thought it is like the big brain play, okay? When I jump at an enemy with my C, what I just did, it stuns them. And I thought when I do that, he won't spawn the orb, but he still did. So this is a personal opinion about gameplay. I don't like the orb mechanic. Would you say that's a good mechanic? I don't. Another thing is, especially for my guys who also played Outriders, if you play Devastator and do the jump, it's like it feels powerful, okay? It feels powerful. It feels like strong. You devastate them. This one doesn't feel powerful. There's no weight to that. Okay, to that jump. That's a little bit of we could improve that. Improve the impact of your skills and improve the impact of some of the guns, because some sound like pea shooters. But the core gameplay is something I actually can see myself enjoying in the future. The gameplay itself. Okay, the gameplay itself, the gunplay feels pretty satisfying. So that's the good thing. It just needs a few tweaks here and there. Maybe just remove the orb mechanic or something, or show that it's an orb guy better, and then I would be pretty happy with that, with the core gameplay. So that was my thought about the gameplay. I don't know if it made any sense. Now that we talked about gameplay, let's talk a little bit more about loot. And for all the looter shooter we all played, like Destiny 2 and Outriders and the other stuff, yeah, we want loot. We want a lot of loot. But the problem is two things. The Descendant gives you a lot of loot, and that loot is pretty useless, okay? You get like all that shit that's like lying around there, that's all loot. Okay, most of it, some are heal ops, never mind. You get a lot of loot. The problem is, most of the loot isn't very useful in regards of weapons. The runes, yes, you can disassemble them and enhance them, and we will talk about the runes later in that little review. And we have another problem, and my Destiny folks know that from our vault. If you look at the inventory, do you spot? That's a question. Now you have to be super careful. Attention, please. Do you spot the problem I have with the loot? What might the main issue be with getting a lot of loot? It's on that screen, and that definitely needs some work. Should I tell you? The problem is this one here, over here, ladies and gentlemen. That's my backspace. That's 60 slots, and that's because I already leveled. You start with less backspace. I think you get 2 backspace every level. And with getting like tons of loot. I think like 50% of the time is like deleting loot or selling loot or looking if you can delete loot you got before that you don't need to pick up the new loot. And I'm not talking about a backspace of 60 only for weapons. That's also for those shield things and stuff. And that's something that definitely needs work. If we have loot like that, 2 points. More backspace and please more useful loot, okay? A lot of loot is awesome if it's useful. If it's just crap, then not. And we need more backspace. That was the loot point. It brings us to the runes. Okay, so the runes. So you have different kinds of runes. If you played Warframe, it's basically the same system. You have the different kinds of Torrent rune, Tide rune, Thunder rune, Haze rune, and then your Descendant rune. The Descendant runes are basically based for every Descendant, and then like defense, more HP and stuff. That's how you can improve your Descendant. And there are also like different runes that have like pros and cons. For the beta, I focus just on the tier 1s because they are just straightforward, giving you some buffs. I think in theory you can have pretty different builds with the rune system, which I like. The problem is it's pretty messy. So let's say you have a messy rune system, and as you guys said in chat, with a pretty terrible UI. One tip I would like to see, okay? One thing I would like to see is, can we please see all the runes on one screen? I don't know, I don't need that huge dead space here, okay? I don't need that. That's just what I had before in the replacement rune. That's a little bit overkill. You could add that here, for example. And then just show me more runes. The whole rune system, I don't want to go too deep into detail at the moment. It's like, you collect all the runes and then you can enhance them so they get stronger. Obviously, you can disassemble runes you don't need, so you get material to enhance the runes you need. And you can also like combine 4 runes to get a random new rune. If you played Warframe, you know the concept. If you didn't play Warframe, it is like the Warframe concept. Let's talk about matchmaking. If you want to hate like Dirty's playing always like with those in those squads, like with 3 people, but we never see one on screen. And that's the problem. If you matchmake for the area you travel to. You don't matchmake for the mission you do there. That's a problem. So if you're lucky, the guys you got matchmade with might want to do the same mission in the area than you, but maybe not. So can we please, I think that's something that has to change. Can we please have a matchmaking based on when we start a mission in that area? There's another point. Even if you are in the same area, and even if you want to do the same mission, if one of the guys you're matchmade with starts the mission, that doesn't mean it starts the mission for you as well. You also have to go manually to the mission starting point and start it for yourself as well. And then you can play it together. I don't know why we include a matchmaking at all. And I hope and I think and I'm pretty sure that will change, because it must change. We need to have matchmaking based on the mission we want to do. Otherwise, there's no use for that. Where matchmaking works is intercept missions. This might or might not be the end game of the Descendant, because I don't know, the first Descendant, because I didn't play that much. But let me show you a Void Intercept, okay? What does it look like? It's the huge boss fights. I think that might be really interesting for those who couldn't join the beta. So this was the screen where you actually matchmake with 3 other guys, and then you try to kill one of those Colossus. And there are some mechanics like weak points, like phases. You know that from MMORPGs. I just let that run in the background. I might die 1 or 2 times, but that was totally not on me. I just want to show that a little bit. So this seems to be the end game. I mean, here you can see the little blue thing I'm shooting at. They are pretty entertaining. Okay, the boss fights are pretty entertaining, and they are like huge badass monsters. The cover, yes, like this. You can't just hide behind the cover and peek shoot, because he will destroy them. But I will just let that boss fight run a little bit for you, so you can see some of the mechanics. What else is to say? The problem is most of the time you need gear to kill them. That is already the same level than the gear they drop. Maybe it's more for farming like materials and runes, I don't know. It's not like you get like the super cool stuff, okay? You go there and then you have a better weapon or stuff like that. That's not guaranteed, so we have to balance the loot as well for the release version. Can we say that like that? I think we can. This is a perfect example for mechanic. I mean, now you can shoot the whole guy over there. Nothing will happen. You have to destroy those little things while he's in that mode and shooting. I think we have 4 of them. They are pretty obvious when you know what to look for. I like those little mechanics, okay? So you destroy those. He's spawning the ads. So that's the example for avoid intercept. There's another thing. I don't know why they do it like that. So in Warframe, at least, you have something that sucks the loot to you. After every one of those guys, when you do that, you have to run in a circle and collect that stuff. Like what I'm doing. Can you please just put that in my inventory? That would be awesome. That was avoid intercept I wanted to show you. That seems to be the end game for now. There are also a survival mission, which unfortunately I didn't capture one of those, but then that might be a surprise for you when you're finally able to play that for the next test or for the release or whenever that will happen. Let's talk about how you unlock new descendants, which also leads us to the last point, demonetizations, and my fear in regards of demonetization because of what we see and how we unlock the descendants. But we will talk about that after I show you how you unlock all the descendants. So you have to go to Xenia to unlock new descendants. That's over there. And here's the thing. You need some materials to start the research to get the descendant, also some gold. There's also a timer to it with around about 8 hours. And there's also some other currency in there. If you don't have all the stuff you need, you can go at least, I don't know if it's just for the beta an event or if it's all the time. You can also use another currency here at the event shop and buy what you need to unlock the first descendants. And keep in mind, maybe I should say a little word about that. If you see my money over here, so all the stuff, that's just the last day of the beta where they basically gave you like a shit ton of resources to test some stuff. Usually you don't have that much, at least I didn't. So this is how you unlock the first descendants. You could also collect that stuff. Maybe not the best way to do it, but I think is it that much different than Warframe? I don't think so. In Warframe you had to farm the same boss all over for some different parts. And that's actually how you unlock the descendants. And now here we are just on a stream that brings us directly to the last point of my review. The issue I have with that is also the issue that brings us to the monetization. I mean, I said it before. Do you see the timers here? They are all the same now. Those are a little bit slower. And I have a strong feeling that unfortunately, maybe you can buy the material with real money. Maybe that's the currency you buy with real money later. Maybe you can speed up the process with real money. That's my fear. Why do I think that might be the way they monetize it? Let me tell you why. Because everybody is saying if they monetize, please make it with cosmetics, which I would agree on. The problem is they already said that there won't be any cosmetics that like change the look of the descendants, okay? Because the look defines the descendants. You can decorate them with whatever that means, but there won't be different looks for the descendants. And because there will be no such thing like different looks for the descendants. That's not what I think. That's what was actually told. I think the only way to monetize it is unlocking descendants or make stuff time gated. And I hate that. I know they have to monetize somehow, but I really don't like paying for faster unlocks and stuff like that. That's just my theory how I think they will unlock it. And this was the last point, which brings me to my summary. I think it has great potential because I like the gameplay. I like the gameplay, how it feels. Abilities could feel a little bit stronger. Weapons need a little bit of work to feel more different and to feel more powerful, or that you feel the impact. But there's a lot of polish to do. We talked about the graphic bug with the AMD cards. They definitely have to work that. We have to work on performance. Definitely needs some work, but it's still until next year. I don't know when next year they plan to release. I hope they have enough time to polish that, because if that game is more polished, and if like what I want to try is also crossplay in the future, because if the crossplay is good, it could be a nice game, maybe not a main game, but we all play more games. Maybe it could be a nice game where we team up when we have a Destiny 2 season, maybe that's like drained and we want to play something different. That could be something I see myself absolutely playing, because it feels fun, but still a lot of work to do. But that are just my 2 cents. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this little piece of content, and if you want to see more stuff, especially builds, check the playlist to my left. And if you are more interested in what YouTube algorithm has in petto for you, then check the one below that playlist. If you like my stuff, please leave a like and help Mom's Basement grow. See you next time. Dirty Hottie out.